Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.
We begin with the war in Iran. President Trump's top counterterrorism official resigning tonight, saying Iran posed, quote, no imminent threat to the U.S. Late today, the president lashing out after Joe Kent, his hand-picked director of the National Counterterrorism Center, quit his post.
And then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and if they see it's reported in the press that this, and this, so they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic.
2 seconds later.
Let's get to Joe Kent. He wrote a statement. I didn't waste my time reading that entire statement. I'm just going to say this real quick. I think Joe Kent is a coward. I think he's a coward, and he should be ashamed of himself. He should be honored for his service that he committed to this country, but he's a coward for what he did. And then it had nothing to do with Israel. I think what he said about us fighting a war for Israel is nonsensical, but people have a right to have a stupid opinion if they want to. But the fact that you think you a man, you think you doing something, you think it's honorable that you can say, I'm gonna resign because I don't believe in this, but the men and women who serve can't resign. You think you doing something. You're not a leader. You're a coward.
Undermining the commander-in-chief that is hell-bent on undermining our armed forces, and yes, is giving aid and comfort, propaganda to the enemy, as are individuals who I call the woke right neo-fascists, who are stirring the anti-Semitism pot, who are stirring the trash Christian pot. They are no different than the same voices we heard in the 1930s, and just as disgusting, evil, and reprehensible. All this talk about this war wasn't imminent. Why did we decide now? All this talk about what is the mission. All of this is used to try and obstruct, undermine, dispirit, and divide this nation. At a time when Donald Trump is doing what great presidents do. You will be remembered forever. You will be remembered as the isolationists of the 1930s. Shame on you, woke right neo-fascists. You will be remembered as the unpatriotic, anti-American Jew haters.
Well, this morning, Joe Kent quit his job at the National Counterterrorism Center and issued a scathing letter designed to undermine President Trump. The letter is deeply, deeply conspiratorial. It states openly that, quote, Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Now, that is conspiracy trash. It's also kind of strange since President Trump has said that it's conspiracy trash. So apparently, Trump is so deeply, deeply enthralled to those strange, powerful American lobbies. We're not going to say it. That he apparently has been so bamboozled by them that he's still under the impression that he's his own man.
The former director of the National Counterterrorism Center has just announced his resignation following the continued escalation of tensions between the U.S. and Iran. As a veteran who deployed 11 times, and as someone who lost his wife in war, you would expect the majority of the response to be admiration, support, and respect. Instead, many of the most prominent figures in the MAGA base have done the opposite. They've called him names, made baseless accusations, and even gone so far as to call him a liar. The irony is that Joe Kent is a widower. Joe Kent is a veteran. Joe Kent is literally a person that had access to declassified intel directly tied to the war. He's almost as qualified as anyone to speak on this matter. But none of this matters, of course. The same crowd pushing the grieving widow Erika Kirk narrative all of a sudden doesn't seem to care about protecting widows anymore. The facts don't care about your feelings argument doesn't seem to matter either. But what if I told you that all of this was orchestrated and I can prove it? Welcome back to another episode of Diddy Got a Podcast. Hit the like button on your way in. I would really appreciate it. Now let's read this tweet right here. It says, the Israel mob is now holding Zoom meetings and phone calls plotting how to save face following Joe Kent's statements. 2, they will begin delegitimizing his statements, calling it totally absurd. 3, they will begin a deep investigation into Joe Kent's life, attempting to find anything to tarnish his reputation, character, and brand him as a fringe lunatic. 4, the Israel mob will push their allies and the U.S. officials to publicly condemn Kent's statements, isolating him from the establishment and powerful figures. And 5, the Israel mob will begin fabricating lies about Kent, including fabricating evidence to put this man in prison. Watch how quickly this happens. These people are mobsters. This was posted March 17th, immediately after Joe Kent's public resignation. So the question should be, how is it that a random person on the internet can almost predict to a T exactly how this is going to go? Because sure enough, soon after, breaking news would hit the airwaves.
A moment ago, sources are saying that Joe Kent, the former director of the United States National Counterterror Center, this is from Semaphore, he just resigned. He's now under FBI investigation for allegedly leaking classified information.
Even Nancy Pelosi told us how this works. So it's clear that there's a smear campaign against Joe by surprisingly all individuals who happen to be Zionists, but specifically Andrew Kovac. Why would he post this? Why would he even care about this news? It has nothing to do with TPUSA, the same organization that has refused to speak about anything regarding the Epstein files, Trump's foreign policy, the Iran war, the state of the economy, and the list goes on. But the bigger question would be why? Why do they care so much about Joe's resignation? Well, let's take a listen to the first thing Joe told Tucker Carlson regarding the Iran war.
Was Iran on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon?
No, they weren't, 3 weeks ago when this started, and they weren't in June either. I mean, the Iranians have had a religious ruling, a fatwa, against actually developing a nuclear weapon since 2004. That's been in place since 2004. That's available in the public sphere. But then also we had no intelligence to indicate that fatwa was being disobeyed or it was on the cusp of being lifted.
But it only gets worse. Let's take a listen to what Joe had to say about the connection between the Iran war, the alleged Trump assassination attempt all the way back in 2024, and Charlie Kirk.
I mean, we still don't know what happened in Butler.
What kind of pressure does it require to get a president who campaigned against exactly this thing for 10 years to do exactly this thing? What does it take to do that?
I wish I knew definitively. I think there's two potentials, there's two schools of thought. I mean, one is the media echo chamber, the donors, the way the Israelis come in and kind of launder the information like I described previously. And then the other option is much darker. We don't know what happened with Charlie Kirk. And by no means am I saying the Israelis did this or any of that, but I'm saying there's a lot of unanswered questions there. And there is enough data to at least say that there's a good chance that President Trump feels like he is under threat. We're not allowed to ask, basically, was there any linkage between what took place with Asif Merchant, who was recruited by the Iranians to come to America to recruit proxies to kill President Trump. The FBI put a confidential human source at him. All this is public now. This is all out there in the open. And he's arrested, and then 2 days later, a sniper takes a shot at President Trump. We think Merchant and the C8, we know this was talking about the human source that the FBI put at Merchant. They were talking about, hey, we could kill the president potentially with a sniper rifle. But then they arrest him. 2 days later, Butler happens. And Crooks, according to the official narrative anyways, is an enigma. We don't know anything about him. We can't get into his devices. If we did get into his devices, maybe there's nothing there. No more questions are allowed to be asked about Thomas Crooks. And then, Charlie Kirk is killed publicly in a very horrific way, and we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors, and he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. He was in the Oval Office in the lead up to the 12-day war. I wasn't particularly close with Charlie. He was very gracious to me when I was running for Congress, very, very supportive. So we knew each other. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing, in the stairway. And I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and you've been in the West Wing, it's small, it's a tight space, and he said, Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran, very loudly.
He was single-minded.
And he walked off, and he went, I believe, into the Oval. So when one of President Trump's closest advisors, who is vocally advocating for us to not go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis, and then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about that. It's a data point. It's a data point that we need to look into.
What do you mean when you say we're not allowed to ask any questions about that?
We've been told that this individual, Robinson, is a lone gunman, and maybe he is. But the investigation that I was a part of, the National Counterterrorism Center was a part of, we were stopped from continuing to investigate. And the FBI will say that they stopped that because they wanted to turn everything over to the Utah state authorities. Everything's going to trial. It's very, very sensitive. But there was still a lot for us to look into that I can't really get into. But there was still linkage for us to investigate that we needed to run down. And I'm not making any conclusions. I'm not saying
no, I don't think you are.
Because of this happened. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's unanswered questions. We know the pressure because of the text messages that have been made public that Charlie was under a lot of pressure from a lot of pro-Israel donors. And again, we know Charlie was advocating to President Trump against this war with Iran. And we knew at the end of the 12-day war, at the end of Midnight Hammer, that the Israelis were going to come back and ask us to go back to war again.
Right.
So we have a lot of data points between Butler, the assassination attempts against President Trump, the breaches of his security, what happened to Charlie Kirk.
Can I just ask you to pause on the Charlie Kirk because it upsets me to hear what you're saying, to be reminded that he was murdered, but also to hear you confirm what was reported in the media several months ago, that your office had been blocked from investigating his murder. That does not make sense to me.
This has caused so much panic in certain circles that some of their paid influencers have even went as far to generate fake text messages from Charlie Kirk claiming that Joe Kent is not a good person. Why would a person do something like this? And if things couldn't get any worse, Joe alleges that he was even shut down from investigating the Charlie Kirk assassination, inquiring if there were any foreign intelligence that played a role. So just like the alleged Trump assassination attempt, the Charlie Kirk investigation has also been shut down, and even those in the government with some of the highest profile clearances are and have not been able to look further into it themselves. So what message does this send us? What exactly is this painting? What picture is this painting about this country, about the things that are taking place in this country, and what it means for you to speak out? Because the obvious thing is for people to believe that a person's life could be in danger. But before that, there's a smear campaign, right? They have to disregard you. They have to discredit you. They have to disown you. And even if in 2026, a time where most people, I would like to think, are not falling for the same playbook that these people have been playing by for decades, they still choose to go follow through with it, despite the fact that Trump has even tweeted issues that he's having with Israel. So Trump can say that Israel is the reason why the Iran war is taking place. Pete Hegseth can say the same thing, and even Marco Rubio. But the moment that someone else says it, like a Joe Kent, who decides to resign in the process of saying it, he's anti-Semitic, he's a liar, and he's a coward. You can't take these people serious. They are behaving just like the left. Everything that they've accused the left of doing, they are literally the spitting image of that in 2026. Hop in the comment section. Let me know what you think about all of this. As always, hit the like button on your way out. I'm Demetrius. I go by Didi. I'll catch you all the next one. Peace. Oh yeah, Didi got a podcast.